Okay, people. So I am joined today by Justin Geldzahler. I did say that right, right?
Yeah, but
Oh,
90%.
okay.
Geldzahler.
Okay. Woo! That's a win for me, Justin. I'm terrible with pronunciation. So yeah, I will take that. But yes, Justin is the writer and director of oh my God, Glue Trap. My mind just went blank. Oh, I am ridiculous. But yes, Justin, thank you very much for stopping by. Really appreciate that. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's a little warm. How about yourself?
I am, yeah, not too bad. Really hot. But I've been enjoying yeah, just going through all of this dances with film material. And I'm coming off a good yesterday. I went to see Bat for Lashes last night. So I'm still vibing off that.
Oh, that's awesome. I was at the Tribeca last night and I saw this wonderful film, Chasing Amy. So I like that we're both carrying good
Eh?
art vibes into this.
Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
It's a like
is it like similar to Chasing Amy?
it's a documentary about this trans filmmaker Sav Rogers' relationship with his queer identity, which started from watching the movie Chasing Amy at age 8, every day for a
Oh,
month. And so it's a very beautiful film. I highly recommend it.
ooh, that
Yeah,
sounds interesting. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Sav and I are we're Twitter acquaintances because we both had screenplays selected for last year's GLAAD list, which was the best unproduced LGBTQ plus screenplays in Hollywood. I have this nice uh, gay western that's about the strong silent type learning to talk about his feelings, and so
Uh,
that's how we touched base.
well, I
But
mean, oh, sorry, man.
I was just gonna say I'm very jealous of you having gotten to see all these dances with films and movies because I've seen my own, but I have to wait till the festival before I can see everyone else's.
I know that festivals can be so overwhelming because it's just like, what do I watch? And when there's clashes, you think, oh, I'll watch that, and then there's something, I'd be like, oh, but I wouldn't want to. I want to watch that too. What? Oh, which one do I pick? Like, what do I do? Oh, yeah, it's it can be a bit of a pain, but it's a lot of fun because you get to see so many different things that you might not have had the opportunity to see.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good problem to have, and I'm glad that I've already been seeing some of those conflicts in my schedule for the festival. But thankfully, we have another festival later this year, the Richmond International Film Festival, my hometown, and I've seen that some of the projects from dances are also going to be there. So I'm like, oh, good. I was worried I
Oh,
wasn't going to be able to see that, but I can catch up with it at the next one. And like that it's kind of this is my first time going to a film festival as a filmmaker, and I feel like I'm just excited to find
okay.
that community.
Okay. Well, that's it. Well, I mean, it makes sense because Glue Trap is your feature directorial debut, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, most of my short films, were made in me learning how to use a camera, or shooting with my iPhone.
Ah,
And so I feel like this is a for other than one short film with a budget of like 2 grand. This is my first real project. Everything else was like, hey, I have some people who are willing to give me an afternoon to shoot something really quick, but nothing that had this level of planning and execution.
interesting. So, what made you think that you could do this?
I mean, I'm still wondering that. I think it was just the kind of thing that I've been working in Hollywood for maybe about 8 9 years when I kind of started developing this, and I'd worked in television and kind of gone up the ladder being a script coordinator and then later researcher and consultant on a bunch of very wonderful shows like Fosse Verdon, Succession, Plot Against America. But at a certain point, I was finding like, oh, I'm not actually going to get the opportunity to write that I thought I would. Like, we're seeing it with the writer's strike now. Of there used to be more of a hierarchy and there used to be more of a ladder, and that ladder was kind of getting pulled up. So it was the kind of
Mm.
thing of, well, no one else is trying to direct any Justin Geldzahler script, so I guess I have to go make one. And it was the thing I kind of kept saying to myself is, I'm going to be terrified whether or not I do this, so I might as well just do it.
Mm. True. No, I think that's the thing with so many things, right? It's the anticipation of doing something can freeze people. But it's like as soon as you start doing it, all of that can change. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
you just do it, right? It doesn't really matter. And who like who's gonna tell you how it is? You know what I mean? Like you can think, oh, I can't do this, but it's no one will know until you actually make that attempt. And if you fail, so be it. But at least you tried.
Absolutely. And I don't think I failed. I think on this one, at least
I don't know,
I
Justin. I don't think you can say that. It was I watched the film. So I can say no, you killed it, man. You killed it. It was
thank you.
great. I
Thank you.
enjoyed
That's
it, man.
Oh, that's great. But no, it's a, I feel like so much of it is a learning experience, and there's so many things that went better than I could have imagined, and then there were so many surprises that I couldn't have anticipated. So I'm like, oh, I'm extremely proud of the film we made, but I'm also like, oh, the next one's going to be even better.
Mm. Well, I guess it's this huge learning curve being the first. Like, what were the thoughts going in, and were they the same coming out?
When you say thoughts going in, thoughts coming out, in terms of like what were going to be the problems, or
Like all of it, man. Like, what going in, like you must have thought, this might be the most challenging aspect, right? Or how will I feel on that first day of shooting? Like, can I do all of this on my own? Right? Am I ready for this? You know, I mean,
yeah.
what's the fear gonna be like? And then once it's done, was that most challenging thing the actual most challenging thing? How did you feel on that first day? Like, did you were you able to cope with all the aspects? Did you need help, support, or were you cool on your own? Like, what was that process all like for you, man?
Well, I mean, I have to say that the thing that I really loved about directing is it's absolutely not on my own. Like it is, I'm just, I'm guiding people, I'm kind of setting a tone, but it's the fact that I get to collaborate with all these talented artists, whether it's the actors in front of the camera, the cinematographer, costume designer, casting, music, everything, everyone is bringing their A game to what is their art form. And, I think there is probably part of me that felt like Atlas going in of like, oh man, I have to carry all this, I have to carry all this, and it's like I really don't. The director's job is bringing out the best in all these other people, and it's seeing that and seeing what they could do and just kind of being a cheerleader and just making sure that like it's mostly just making sure that we're all making the same movie, but like it was learning how much I falls to other people. Like there's this director Tommy Kail, I know through the show Fosse Verdon I worked on, and I was asking, one of my fears along with managing a set was just working with actors because I have much more experience writing than I did that. And
Mm.
I was like, how do he made this show about this beautiful relationship, and I was just like, how do I work with my two leads, Brittany Bradford and Isaac WJ, like how do I help build this relationship, what prep do we need to do, all these sort of nervous questions. And his, very politely was like, they're smart actors, they'll figure it out, you just don't get in the way. And sure enough, I found that to be it. Like, in the editing room, like I just kept thinking, thank God I have really talented actors. It's like that at the end of the day, I mean, I love every part of it, but it's also movies are about just watching very charismatic people on screen who are often better looking than us.
Yeah, very true, man. Very true. Like, what was it like putting together that support system, right? Finding the right cinematographer, editor, DP, just all of those different people to help like bring this to life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was a film that originally we ended up making it for 5 cents. The plan was to make it for 2 cents. And so like it was a lot of who do I know and who do the people I know know. So like one of the first people I reached out to was a high school friend of mine named Nor Stenchen. He has a small production company where they mostly make music videos and commercials, but I didn't know about getting a production together. And him and his partner, Christopher Fox, they helped produce the film, but they're also respectively, Norse was the editor and Christopher was the director of photography. So like it kind of just built out from there, and finding other, the costume designer, Alita Berry Donut, I'd worked with on Fosse Verdon. Taylor Rowley, our music supervisor, was someone I'd met at a party years ago. And she's wonderful LA DJ who has this great show people should check out, Windmills of Your Mind. But it was truly a who do I know? And also, even writing the script was kind of based on what performers can I put in this? It was very much I want to direct a movie. The film we were originally going to make got scuttled by COVID. And so it's like, what are the available resources to build a movie out of? And then, of course, we had to recast the two leads due to production delays. And we ended up getting people who are even better.
Uh-huh. Oh, shit. So there was another movie before this movie.
Oh yeah, because it was around 2019. I was having that feeling of I need to make a movie, and so I love mysteries, and I love my hometown of Richmond, Virginia. And so I was speaking with the friends in the area, and I'd had this sprawling urban mystery we were going to shoot all over the state, and it was just kind of like what are public spaces we can take advantage of, and like what are all these cool locations we can go to. We had our table read for that movie on March 2nd, 2020. And then it became quickly clear, maybe we should make this movie that relies on using public spaces. And, thankfully, my parents have a cabin in the woods about 2 hours from there. And it was just like, okay, great. That is one location we can use, and we can use the surrounding areas. I'll write a movie for a cast that is very small. Like most of the film was just 3 people. And it was just like, this is a film that came out of limitations.
Okay. I had no clue about that, man. That's real. How long did that pivot take?
I think emotionally it took a few months, because I think, especially as you remember in March 2020, we were like, we're just all going to lock down for 2 weeks, right? That's it. And then it's like, as it stretched on longer and longer, it was around May of 2020 where I was like, I don't think I can make this movie anytime soon. I need to figure out something else. And that's where Glue Trap came out of it.
And how long did it take to write the script?
This is a little embarrassing. I've never had any experience like this. I wrote the first draft in 2 days.
Okay.
I'm not usually a faster writer. I think it's because there were so many things about the film decided already. So like I went off to my parents' cabin. I was like, okay, I was going to make this movie with another actor. So like, I'll write a part for him. And there's this other actor I know, she's really talented. I'll make them a couple. And then, I've been dating a very talented performer recently. I'll make her the third wheel that shows up. And like, I was like, okay, great. That's already decided for me. Like, even though I didn't know the characters that well, I knew what they looked and sounded like. And I was in the location, and I had a very basic structure of just like 3 key points. And it just kind of all flowed out. And I think, it was weird. I wrote 60, I want to say 66 pages in that first day. And I've never written anything like that. And I also wrote it for that size. This script was heavily, heavily, heavily revised since that first draft, but it was still the key movie. And it had one scene that I was like, this scene is good enough that I have to try and make this movie.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I definitely get that, right? Because I just remember when I was doing my degree that I wrote, I think 3 or it might have been 4 different dissertations for my end product, because I'd write something and then I'd be like, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the one, right? And then another one, and I thought they were good, but to me they just weren't what I wanted to put out there. And then I think one night it was like 1 a.m, and it all fell into place, and I just wrote, and I think I knocked it all out, like then finished the end of the next day. Oh, and wow. I just think sometimes you hit that flow state, right? Where it just seems to, oh, that's a paragraph. Oh, that's the intro. Oh, yes, that bit. Boom, that takes me to that. Oh, and work that, boom, boom, boom. And you do it. But other times you're like, oh, fuck, what would they say? Oh, how can I get from here to, and it just takes friggin' forever. So, hey, no, that's impressive for sure, man.
No, and the flow state is right on. And I feel like I'm constantly with my work relearning the same lessons over and over. And one of those is work begets work, but it's also just put something down. Because like, I think the thing that helps me, and the thing advice I'll give is like, the great thing about writing is like you can just always change it. No one needs to see this draft. You just need to get something on the page you can work with, and that's that. I guess, what was the final dissertation you wrote?
Oh, so it was because Blade, right? X-Men 2 Blade was out. So it's the beginning of the comic book films. And so I because I knew that I had to write a dissertation before I started the degree. So I was trying to think of what would stand out, right? Because I know at the time a lot of people were writing about buy one get one free offers, budget airlines, and things like that. And so I was like, your dissertation is only as good as the one they previously just read, right? So if they've read one on budget airlines and you've written on budget airlines, right, and yours, although any other time yours might be an A, right, but the one before was so good, yours is now a C, right? So I was like, I need to pick a subject that no one else is going to be writing about. So mine will just live and die for how I've written it. So I picked, can comic book movies, well, can comic books work as promotional material for movies and vice versa? So that was the, dissertation.
Oh wow, bit ahead of the curve there. Because it does.
Oh no, sorry, man.
I was just gonna say, it does seem like, with the way, Marvel and such have grown, like ultimately, though, the comics were the end all be all and how it started, the comics now exist to promote the movies based on the comics.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I think the problem with it all is, like, think of when you go to a festival, right? You've seen a band and you're like, oh, this was great. And so a lot of people are like, yo, let me grab a poster, let me grab a t-shirt, a tote bag, or whatever. And you can turn around and it's all on sale. Right. And it's that like memory buying, right? It's that experience. You want to continue that experience. The thing, because when you hear people come out of a comic book film, a lot of times they're like, oh, that was great. Yo, wouldn't it be great to have more stories about that person and blah, blah, blah. But you come out the theater, there's no comic books on sale. So it's up to that person to then find a comic book store to buy. And so, the time you get home, you're thinking of other stuff. So, like, in an ideal, like, they would work as promotional material for each other, but it's not there. And that's always baffled me. If I was a comic book store, I'd approach the whatever theater close by and be like, yo, I see you got Batman. Can I come put a little stall? We can sell stuff, we'll split the cost, whatever. Do something like that. Put a QR code on the back of the ticket, though nowadays there's no physical tickets, but have something to like lead people to the place. But they weren't doing that, so they didn't necessarily work.
No, fair enough. But I know at least well, the Regal 14 in Union Square sadly closed recently, but there was a comic book shop just down the street from it, so I imagine they got a lot of overflow from people coming out of the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I think that was one thing I noticed. Like, going to the States, comic book shops were more prevalent than in the UK. And like over here, they're a lot of times in little dark spots and out of the way. But, they're just there in the States, kind of thing. So I think it made it easier for people to make that transition, maybe.
Okay.
But we are here to talk Glue Trap. So yeah, like with the script and the changes, like, what was it that fed those? Like, after that first draft, how did you go about kind of redefining it and like making it the end product that we get to see?
There are a lot of stages. I mean, even with I don't share my first drafts with anyone. I feel like what I end up sharing is a 1.5 draft or a second draft. But like throughout every draft of everything I write, I have my own personal bullshit meter of like, oh, that it's not that great. And it's like, I mean, there's certain lines that would kind of bump me every time I'd read it, but I didn't have something better. But it's just say like, okay, that's something I have to go back and fix. But then also when you bring on more and more collaborators, that brings in more and more viewpoints and ideas. And even when it'd be like actors, reacting to a scene, we're like, well, I'm not sure if my character would behave that way. And there's some times where I'm like, oh, they're absolutely right. I didn't even consider that. And other times I'm like, well, maybe there's something behind that note. But even just like, I remember talking with Alita, our costume designer, like she, and I'm trying to be a little more circumspect here, but like she had a thought on how uh, there's a big finale at the end and two
Yeah.
characters are dressed to impress for it. And she had the thought of like, oh, they should be, I had some ideas tying into, I think, uh, old Hollywood and old musical references, but she was like, no, they're putting on a show. This is their prom. And I was like, that kind of just unlocked something where I'm like, yes, that is absolutely how they're approaching it. And that just.
Oh, it's those internet gremlins, it would seem.
Oh no.
But you're back. You froze for a second there.
Hi there.
It's an interesting one, right? Because I do wonder that sometimes, right? How much is the wardrobe in the script, and how much is it just the the costume manager, the one that comes up with all the looks and be like, no, they'd wear these sorts of t-shirts, or no, she's more of a trousers and shirt person rather than a dress, or you know what I mean, like that aspect of it. Like,
Yeah,
who came up with those styles kind of in this?
I mean, it was a collaboration because, like, I think how much costuming is in the script changes script to script, and because this is largely about a weekend getaway, there wasn't much description, and it was just talking with her of like, look, they're in casual clothes, they weren't expecting to have any guests. It should all be very natural, but we're still also getting an idea of who they are from how they are dressing at home, and like they, the scene at the beginning is the only time we see our characters go out in the world. And that was actually our last day of shooting. And I felt a little bad because I'm like, oh, wow, they look wonderful. And then not that they don't look great for the rest of the movie, but it's the first time that either of them are dolled up and the last time either of them are dolled up. And so it just kind of came about, okay, well, what's appropriate? And also because this was a very low budget film, what do our actors have in their wardrobe already? Because, we bought certain pieces because either there would be a certain look or a certain color that we wanted in the film, but a lot of it, like the rest of the film, was what do we have available to us that we can use to get this idea across.
Yeah Okay, now with those pieces that you bought, what happens with those?
On some films you end up actually just returning them. We did not. I think the yellow raincoats at the end of the film were the only thing we purchased, and those end up a little dirty. And then there was a specific shirt we had made from one of our characters where we ironed on #blessed. And so we weren't able to return that, but otherwise, and I think that actress kept her piece, although somehow I don't think she's ever worn it since. But no, I think those raincoats are still at my parents' cabin, and maybe they'll get used and maybe they'll get washed off eventually. But there's a bit of red on them.
Yeah, there's always like sometimes you'll have these things. I know Variety have got their actor on actor series, and like something that you'll hear people go, oh yes, when I was on this set I took this, and oh yeah, I walked off with this, and I'm kind of like, you're filthy rich, you could just buy that. Like it always seems interesting to me, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. But I mean, sometimes they might even pay for them. I remember I worked on one show, The Plot Against America. It was a David Simon show. And at the same time, he was doing the last season of The Deuce. And they had a very cheap yard sale at the end because both shows were over. And it was like, I got a belt. I got this very cocaine looking suit that was very shiny. And it's just like, paying $16. And maybe the actors paid a bit, but it's also like, look, here's clothing that was purchased and fitted for their body. There might not be much use out of it. No one, the cost was built into the budget. So if they, what difference does it make at the end of the day if they take it home or not?
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, if something was custom made for me, I'm definitely looking to cop that for sure. Like, how was it like with this story, right? Because I think we've seen stories of couples dealing with stuff, but them thinking of the ending. I mean, the ending completely takes you by surprise. And
Okay.
then, well, the first part of the ending, right? The shift in direction. And then the very ending, definitely different because we never usually see it go that way. Right? You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You usually
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that, and it's like boom, boom, you know what I mean? So what made you go in that direction? It's always a pet because you don't want to say too much, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
don't want to spoil it for anyone. But
No, I know, and let me tread carefully. I think I'll say, I mean, the first shift you talk about, which is about maybe three-quarters of the way,
yeah,
two-thirds of the way through, that was always built in because I just knew, like, this film is, I think we've landed on calling it a cringe dramedy horror film, and I just knew I wanted to create this unease and this discomfort where you're not even sure whether you're watching a horror movie. It's just very uncomfortable, and you just want something to happen, but nothing really comes, and then it's like finally, oh no, it hits. But then with the direction, it ends up going further on. I think part of that might have been just writing a script in the summer of 2020. There's a lot of fear and anxiety in the air. And me
mm,
reading too much about various cults and QAnons and so on. And I think as far as the very, very ending, though, I'm a song and dance man. Like there's a musical number in this, there's singing in this. Like I love musicals, and one of my favorite films of all time is All That Jazz. Have you seen that one?
okay, yes, not
Yeah.
recently, but yes.
It's for those who haven't seen it, it's this fantastic film that Bob Fosse made about Bob Fosse, and it ends with this 15-minute musical number that he's kind of witnessing, on the edge of death. And I remember the first time I watched that movie, I just rewound it and watched the ending again. And so I like the idea of a move. I love movies that aren't musicals that have music in them, and I had just this vague notion of I would like a movie to end with a little singing. I'd like it to end in the place, and so I think I just had that desire, and I wasn't sure how I was going to get there, and just I think it's just knowing these things you want to do, and hopefully I make more films, but the approach with this film is like maybe I'll never get another chance. I need to stick in things that I want to do in a movie, and there's some things that couldn't happen, or whether it was for budget reasons or just it wasn't right for this movie. But I'd like to think that all these shifts and tonal changes were just, that all came together because it just, that's something I want to see in a movie. That would be
Mm.
fun to happen. This would make a good scene. And, hopefully the viewers feel carried along that path.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Like, to be honest, I had no clue this was a horror. Right? So I'm watching it and I'm thinking it's just a relationship piece, right? Because you know what? It reminded me of Noah Beckenbauer's Marriage Story, of watching this relationship disintegrate.
Oh,
And I thought you did a really good job of showing like the nuances of that. Of there's when I was reviewing this, I was talking like when you're in a something with someone that you really care about, right? You understand the things that make them happy, right? The way they express themselves. And we're all so different. So someone might say something and you're like, I know what they meant. That's fine, right? Or I know that wasn't meant to hurt me, or they did that because they thought they were doing something cool. But then when you're falling out of love with someone, that all changes, right? And you're like, wait, what was that meant to me? What the fuck are you? Why did you do that? And everything then becomes this issue. And so watching this, you didn't like a lot of the times these things are done, but it's mad over the top or so ridiculous. And you're like, people don't like, come on now, what we do, and it can throw you out of something. So watching this, like the subtleties of everything, right? It was just like, oh shit, this is really compelling. This is really good. And it was just like, what's gonna happen? Will they make it? Will they get through? Where are we going here? So that it was really interesting watching. Like, how easy was that? Those kind of subtleties to write, and were you like pillaging past experiences?
Yeah, I pillaged more than a few past experiences. And thank you, by the way, that's just incredibly kind. Thank you for those words. And Marriage Story, I mean, I love Noah Baumbach's films, but I remember when we were going out to investors, depending on what their background was, but there were times you're calling it, yeah, it's like Marriage Story meets Get Out.
Ah.
And so that was definitely a point of comparison. But yeah, it's I think the first draft was a lot less subtle and it was just finding those ways. But absolutely, like there are a couple of relationships that formed this, past and present. And it's just, yeah, I mean, there was even one line that an ex-girlfriend had said to me years ago, and it was a hurtful thing, but it was also like, that's a good line, and it ended up making its way to the film. In one of those moments, like I referred to earlier, where it's like, this comment's not that great, this line's not that great, and then I realized, oh, I can just slip this in, and it's when Dan says to KJ, hey, for a writer, you're not very good at using your words. And I just felt like it was great. It was great to exercise that from
Yes.
life.
Yeah, I think that is and the crazy thing, there's comms. That's my background, right? I do a lot of marketing communications work, and it is so easy for me to promote other people's shit, right? If you've been like, can you like promote the film, I'd be like, yeah, no worries. Let's do this. Let's do that. Boom, boom, boom. But then when it's your own thing, you're just like, I feel uncomfortable being front and center of this thing. I don't want to say. So it's like always that interesting thing of, writers not necessarily being able to communicate. So that whole bit, that did hit hard. I was like, ooh, that burst, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and the thing is, like, I remember talking about that with my current partner and just kind of being like, but it is a good line. And she's like, who cares if it's a good line? What does that have to do with whatever argument you're having? That's just saying a mean thing to say a mean thing.
But that's arguments, isn't it? It's like a lot of times things make no sense, or it's nothing to do with that situation. It was something that happened months ago, and it's like this callback, and it's just like, wait, what? We calling back to? I thought we dealt with that. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like every relationship has its own rhythm and has its own behavior. But I think something I learned in the relationship that I was in when I started writing this movie, and I'm thankfully still in, is just like learning. Oh wait, you can express hurt feelings and have a conversation, and even an argument without actively hurting someone else. Because I think there have been relationships, and I've been guilty of this as much as past partners have been, where it's like, oh well, I'm hurt, so I'm going to say something hurtful to you, and it's like that does not actually help resolve anything.
Yeah. Yes. And there's the whole book thing, which is, very, because, sometimes like you'll write something or say something, but it's not necessarily how you actually feel.
Absolutely.
It's not a representation of the situation. So that was all, it was just very well handled. I thought it felt like a real situation. And I thought that, because there's so many big projects, that you can watch that don't feel like real situations. It feels like a caricature, a caricature. It feels fake, man. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, no, I think this is probably the most, in part by reasons of the budget, the most personal film I've ever written. And I do think there's a lot of past relationships, and there's a lot of just what could we also pull off with what we had available. Because I think there are a lot of movies made by people who look like me, and movies about people who look like me. So generally my approach for a lot of things I'm writing are just like, okay, I'm always, everything I write is going to be about me, but I want to cover it up, and like it's going to be a Western, or it's going to be a con artist film, or something like that. And I feel like with this one, because it's so stripped down, I couldn't really hide. And we have this couple with a white man and a black woman, but like both characters are me. Absolutely. If anything, KJ might be more me than Dan, but all I can write is myself. And it was interesting just parsing past relationships, because there are times I'm like, oh, I've definitely been like, there'd be scenes in the film where it's like, oh, I've been KJ here. Other scenes are like, oh, I've been Dan. And it's thankfully, I think through the talents of Brittany and Isaac, they were able to become characters and people who are very different from myself.
Have you ever been Eliza?
Oh, I think, there have been times I'm afraid I've been Eliza, like, I just want these people to like me. I just want to fit in. And it's like, but I realized also with Eliza, I was writing about an old roommate, and that had not, it's the sort of thing where, I think Stephen King has this great thing of like, first drafts are subconscious, but then when you read it over, you have to realize, oh, wait, I was actually writing about this, and you got to use that information to kind of lean into it, because it's like the combination of high energy and boring is a very dangerous energy, and one that always makes me nervous to be
around. I have to say, the hashtag blessed felt like such a fitting t-shirt for that character. You'd be like, of course she would wear that. Of course.
No, and I believe the hashtag blessed came out of a suggestion from the actor's mother, who was helping pull together that line. And then it was just a great punchline, because we have it hidden by an apron for a long time, and then the apron comes off, and you're like, oh. And then just the way we play with that in the scene. So I'm glad it worked. We're very proud of that. My friend Pete Gibson has a print shop, a union print shop in Richmond, Virginia, and like, all the paintings in the house came from him. Those are all public domain, because I think my parents have nicer art than that. They're Jews, but we were depicting a waspy house. So it was like, okay, we need paintings of horses. He was able to print all them out. He was able to make that shirt. He did a bunch of great work for us.
Oh, nice. Interesting. Yeah. How do you find, right, if you're, because I think, you write what you know, right? So experiences definitely factor into characters and all of that kind of thing. But when you know that, okay, this is going to be played by a woman, or someone of a different race, or ability, or anything like that, how do you kind of try and go about making that feel like a true person, right? And just like, because what you might say might be different to how a woman might voice that same opinion. You know what I mean? So it's just like, how do you do it? Or does it just come natural?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm not going to give myself that it comes natural, but it is, that's again the beauty of collaboration, but it's also something that is from a starting place. Like, I had written the script for a Black woman and a white man because of the two original actors I was going to work with. And the first few drafts of the script had zero mention of race whatsoever. The character dynamics were exactly the same. The behavior was the same, but the few mentions of race never came up. And it was the kind of thing where I realized, this is an American film, and it's a contemporary film, and to not, I think colorblind casting can work for something like the movie Alien, where it's like, we're hundreds of years in the future, and we're just dealing with this crazy monster that came in. So we're not really going to see how that might impact the dynamics. But there are a lot of stories where, to various degrees, race and gender do impact people's daily lives. So like, I had some of my ideas. I did a lot of reading and research, like I'll do for any project. But then there were also things where, we'd be on set, or I'd be having conversations even well ahead of set and rehearsals with Brittany. And, she offered many things completely unrelated to race or gender, just about how she felt the character. But sometimes I'd be like, hey, I don't know how I feel about this, or, oh, I like this approach. I mean, one of the things that blew me away in the interview or the callback with her was that she was the one person who challenged me of like, well, wait, why did you write this movie? What were you thinking? But she'd also knew the works of Kathleen Collins, and was actually going to meet with her daughter that weekend because of a theatrical podcast she was putting on. So I was just like, oh, the thing also as a director, work with people who are smarter than you. Like, it's great.
No, that's interesting, man. And Yeah, I think it's always good being open, because I always just feel it's sharp. Bleh, iron sharpens iron, right? So you want to be in a room with smart people. You don't want to be the smartest person in a room. You don't want to stifle creativity like that, you
No,
know?
not at all. And I think one of the best piece of advice I got going into this is it's not the director's job to have the best idea. They just need to be able to identify the best idea. And
Mm.
like a lot of times the best idea is coming from someone else. And that's great because it's like that, hopefully that feels like something of a meritocracy, a real meritocracy, not the fake meritocracy we say we have in America, where it's like, okay, whatever's the best idea here is gonna win out. And I think a lot of the times on the set it did.
No, that's great. And I think it's good that you can voice that, right? Because a lot of times you see people try and take credit for other people's shit. And that always baffles it. Like, it's so weird. I remember like back in the day, you didn't really know about stunt people. There's actors all bit, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, and I did that bit. And then you find out they did not. And it's just like, wait, why are you taking credit for something you didn't do? Like, we're not looking at the film and going, well, I mean, they didn't do that thing, so they're no good. Right? It's just like give people the flowers when they deserve it. So I think it's important when people do that.
I couldn't agree more. No, it's a bit filmmaking and television, all of it. It's a team sport, and it's all I. There's this movie I saw years ago called Strike. It's also known as All I Want to Do. It's a 90s indie film about
Mm.
this all girls school fighting to become co ed. It got completely buried by the Weinsteins, but it was a film I fell in love with 10 seconds into it because it opens with the title card, a film by everyone who worked on it. And like that's kind of how I feel about Glue Trap. I didn't think for our uncomfortable relationship movie that would set the right tone, but this film also is never going to say a film by Justin Geldzahler. And in fact, our wrap gifts that we gave out, these little camping mugs, did say Glue Trap, a film by everyone who worked on it.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think it's nice. And I think like carrying that, viewpoint, right? I think that just makes people want to work with you. That will definitely take you far in this industry because you often see certain directors, certain cinematographers, composers, right, that everyone wants to work with because they know that this person is a really good collaborator, can really get things done. So I think, yeah, it's definitely, gonna hold you down well, man.
Thank you. I hope so. No, when we wrapped on production, in the weeks following, the thing that warmed my heart the most is that all these people came together because of a silly idea I had, and like they not only had a good time, like a lot of friendships were made on set, people who all still see each other, myself included, but that they felt also fulfilled by like what they could bring to this, and they got excited about the project, and like that was incredible.
Mm.
I love working with people. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. What was it like on that last day of filming? How did that feel knowing that that aspect of things was done?
It was nice. It was bittersweet, but it also felt good. And like our last day of filming was our one time not at the cabin or not in the nearby woods. We drove 45 minutes to Charlottesville, and we shot at. It was also the one time we didn't shoot either in public property or my parents' house. It was someone else's home, a friend of one of our executive producers. And so I feel like it gave a little like, oh, we're going out in the world. Oh, this is real set, but also, oh man, gotta be really careful. We're in someone else's home. And I think it was just kind of like it was almost like making a because the beginning of the film is almost a teaser in a different world, and so it kind of felt like, oh, we're making the short film on top of this film we've been making. And it was a nice way of sort of transitioning out of the project, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. And what about the editing process? How was that for you?
It was good. This was my first time working with an editor. Like I've usually edited my own stuff, and there's part of me where I was like, oh, I should do that. But I have to say, like, especially not assembling the first cut was a beautiful thing. And I definitely look for, I will work with editors again on anything long form. And so it was great that, Norris and I reviewed the footage and we talked about a bunch of things, but it was kind of like, look, it's like with writing a script, and anything can change until it's done. So he went off, he put together an assembly cut that was about 95 minutes, and then we just hack away. And something, in part because of the low budget nature of this film, but because we had time and not much money, it was a great thing where it's like we'd work for a few days, then take a week off, digest, share cuts, work for a few days, digest. And there was a lot of things that were found in the edit. There's a certain, at times, jerkiness to some of the cuts. Like we cut away before a kiss, we cut away right in, and it's like those were all those were not planned whatsoever. It was just a rhythm we would find in the edit. And yeah, it kind of, I don't know, it felt the most like writing, just in the fact that you can revise, whereas on set you're kind of like, all right, we have to capture something now, and if we can't, whatever we have is what we're going to have. It was nice to slow down again and just kind of sift through the pieces. And while there's part of me where I'm like, I'd also see everything, oh man, if I would do this differently, or I would approach that differently. It was also being able to rely on, oh man, these actors are great to watch. This is just a great thing to look at. It was a lot of falling in and out of with the film, but also the first time I watched it, that first assembly cut, I was like, oh wait, there's some laughs in here. Oh, I'm seeing the movie, and like it's rough, but like I could see something in there. And then I went and saw Steven Spielberg's West Side Story adaptation for like the third time, and I was like, which I think is one of the best movies of the last 20, 30, I don't know. I loved that film. I saw it 4 times in theaters. And I did not find myself hating myself after watching it. I was like, oh, I can still, my movie is nowhere near the accomplishment of this, but I don't feel ashamed by what I've done. And that's, a pretty big win in my book.
Haven't seen the West Side Story yet.
Oh, Kevin, it is like, West Side Story is one of the greatest American songbooks. Like, that's a great soundtrack. This film is so incredible that even if they took out the music, it would be great. Like, he is seeing someone who is so deft with action and camera movement make a musical is a beautiful thing. It is one of the most watchable films I've ever seen. It is
okay.
Like it is movie magic.
All right, I will definitely check it out, and I'll put it on an upcoming episode of Echo Chamber. There's I remember watching the original, right? Like as a kid, when my nan would come over, there'd always be like, she loved like a lot of those old films, so we'd watch a load of old black and white films and stuff like that. And I remember like watching West Side Story with her, and it's just like I remember the original. And I think a lot of times, especially right now, they're remaking everything, and a lot of times you just roll your eyes and be like, yo, why are we remaking that? You know what I mean? So I think there was a little hesitance to it, but now
I had the exact same feeling. I was like, I want to see every director I love make a musical. And I was like, why? There's already a great West Side Story adaptation. Why are you doing this? But then it's like, honestly, it may be the sacrilegious site. I think this is an improvement, and not just because it doesn't have brown face. I truly think that this film is magical.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of those old films, like just crazy. Like with some of the things they did, but it's of its time, and I think it's important that they keep them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
During lockdown, when they were just taking episodes away from things and removing films from platforms, I'm just like, no, you keep them, because it shows what happened in that time period, right? It showed that people thought that certain thing was acceptable. And if you take everything away, people will be like, oh, I don't know why people were moaning. Everything seemed fine. And it's just like, no. We need to let people see what happened. And it's not to say it's a bad project. It's a bad film, TV show. It was problematic now, but when it was made, that was very much acceptable.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to keep those things out there, and it's important to present them with context. And it's like, but also remembering that like some of these things weren't acceptable. Like people would be like, oh, Birth of a Nation, that was an acceptable time. And it's like, no, Birth of a Nation is responsible for the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. Like there were people in the 1910s who thought Birth of a Nation was a terrible movie. Just as I'm sure there were plenty of Puerto Rican actors in the 1960s who were like, why do we need Natalie Wood wearing self-tanner? But and I do think, but it's aside from politics, I think the new film is great just because it does not repeat. It's like, okay, this was how they approached that musical sequence. We're gonna have a completely different idea of it. Like it takes a
Ah.
nothing song like Officer Krupke, and like that might be my favorite scene in the movie. And it's about just having an idea for every scene and every number. Yeah.
Ooh.
I
Yeah.
really sorry. I know you were taking the conversation to a more serious place, but I just had to go
No,
back
no,
to
no, no, no.
everyone should see West Side
Hey,
Story. It's beautiful.
as I said, man, this conversation can go wherever, and so no, that's interesting because now you've got me wanting to go and watch West Side Story. So as
Oh,
I said, I will honestly go and watch West Side Story. So like,
oh,
yeah, no, whatever you want to say is golden, man. It's
oh,
always
good.
good.
Very excited for you to see that movie. I can't wait to hear what you think.
What did you think of La La Land?
I liked La La Land. It's
Mm.
one I need to go back to. The problem is there were two other musicals that started with the letter L that came out that year that I think connected with my heart a little more. There's a British musical called London Road that is with Olivia Colman. That's a wonderful film. And then
Ah.
there's this Polish synth pop musical about killer mermaids called The Lure. And that was like, I fell hard for The Lure that year. So I was like, I like La La Land. I think it's got some fun numbers. I love the Jacques Demy influence. But like, when I need to go back to it and give it another chance, outside of the echo chamber
Mm.
of awards season and 2016 of it all, 2017. But yeah, there are just so many good. I'm look. I'm always happy for a big budget original musical to be made this modern.
Yeah, it was so weird. I remember when it first came out, everyone was like, "It's great," and then suddenly everyone's just like, "Ugh, la la la," and I was just like, "Yo, what happened? This is so bizarre."
Yeah, I mean, because that was kind of how I enjoyed it when I saw it, and then I found myself turning against it. And it's funny how awards season creates heroes and villains and underdogs and the jocks. And it's like, wait, why is yeah, this was a successful movie and it's got movie stars, but like it's an original musical being made in the modern era that's a complete throwback. Like,
Mm.
how is that considered the big jock in all this? It's not like it's an Avatar movie or something. And I say that with I thought I saw Avatar Way of Water multiple times in theaters, but like that's a big movie. La La
Ooh.
Land is, it's just another one out on the field.
Yeah, I haven't seen Avatar yet, so
Oh,
I'm definitely, man. It's just like the pandemic killed me, man. Like it. I got made redundant. Had to burn through all my finances. So then it's just been like trying to get to the cinema is just, oh, and it's so expensive. There's a few films that I have not been able to go see. So yeah, Avatar, Wakanda Forever, they're two that I need to watch, but they're on the list. I'm looking forward to them for sure. But with in a world where a load of people will go, right, that the comic book movie is like killing everything, bringing out something like Glue Trap, like, was there ever a thought of, does this have a place? Like, will people come?
there's a bit of a place, especially making a small film, but I also, it's been great watching it in theaters because I think because it's a quiet film, it's a great one to watch in a crowd and feel the tension. But I think we can only make the best film we can make, and we hope we can find an audience. We'll get it out there, and I think though there have been a lot of problems with the streaming era, the fact that anyone could access our movie is very heartening. So after we do our festival run and we get the movie out in the world, it's great that it's like we will promote it. We'll have collaborators like you out there banging the drum for Glue Trap, and I think we'll find a place. And it might be a slow burn like the movie itself is, but I think people want different types of stories. And I think
Mm,
though in film we've seen like it's only now really big movies and really small movies. That's how there's been this complete explosion in television, because something like Breaking Bad or Mad Men, if that had been made in the 90s, that would have been a movie. But because mid-budget dramas or mid-budget action movies weren't getting made, they became television shows. So I think there's always going to be a hunger, there's always going to be an appetite. And I forget which film critic said this, but there is line where it's like every year is a great year for movies. Just sometimes you have to work harder to find
Mm. No, I'm glad you said that, right? Because I get tired of people talking about, this whole cinema fatigue and people just are tired. And I'm just like, no, if a story is good, people will go watch it. You know what I mean? It's just the problem a lot of times is the marketing of the film. Like I thought John Carter was a really good film, a lot better than a lot of the stuff that's out there. But the marketing of that film was like you didn't know what the hell the film was, right? And that's the thing. You let someone know what the story is, people will come and check it out. You just
them.
have to tell
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I like the trailer that Norris and I put together, and I hope that our marketing continues to be good because it is selling a movie and making a movie are two very different things. And our
Yes.
film's been a bit of a Rorschach test, where everyone thinks it's in a different genre, and that's been great as artists, but it's terrifying as people trying to sell.
Mm, mm.
And no, I enjoyed John Carter. It was a fun movie, but yeah, it had that trouble of so many things are influenced by the John Carter stories that when the proper John Carter adaptation comes out, it can seem like it's ripping off other movies, but those movies are ripping off the original John Carter.
Yeah. No, definitely, definitely. And I think sometimes trailers do disservices for films, right? Because I remember watching Us and, knowing nothing, right? Because I try to know nothing about films when I watch them because I remember going to the cinema. There's two occasions, right? Friend called me up and was like, "Oh, do you want to go to cinema?" I'm like, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's out. And they're like, "Oh no, there's this good sci-fi film." I'm like, "All right, let's go." Sitting down, it was a Matrix. I was like, what the fuck is that? Yo. And the other film was Gladiator. And the way that opened up with the arrows, the Germanic war. And I'm just like, yo, this is incredible. And just that feeling of, oh, I'm going to be watching something great. I love that. So I was like, oh, now I'm never watching a trailer, right? I'm just going to, you know what I mean? Let these things happen. And I remember after watching Us, I'm thinking, this is great. Then having to get the trailer for the website so I can put all the information out there, and seeing that they showed the mirror in the trailer, and I was like, no, you're kind of giving that whole bit away, and that's a huge kind of crazy turn in the film. And I think
Yeah.
trailers can oftentimes just give way too much away or set a different tone to what the film actually is going to be.
No, it's a tricky balance, and I wish I had your level of restraint because like I stopped reading reviews of movies I know I'm going to see, but I'll still watch a trailer because I love a taste. And it's hard because I do think, and it's the same with the trailer for our film is like I think that, and I know the exact mirror moment you're talking about. I think it was able to work for me as someone who saw the trailer for Us before I saw the film. I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't have context, and by the time I was seeing the movie, I'd kind of forgotten about that moment. And
Right,
that's
right.
that's what I love about film festivals, and that's why I'm really excited for Dances with Films and everyone seeing Glue Trap there, because it's one of the few times for us, these media saturated lives we live, where you can actually go into a movie without many expectations or information.
Mm, yeah, no, very true, man. Very true. And boy, like this is your first festival, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All
And
right,
not the
man.
last.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you get this experience. I'm sure people are gonna love it because it's ah such a compelling film, man. And like the turns and everything like that, very well handled, man. So hey, I realized that I have kept you for a long ass time.
Oh yeah, it's all right. I got to go meet my sister for lunch, but no, I think she'll understand. And thank you so much for such a wide ranging conversation. I really appreciate how engaged you were with our film, and I just hope it can find an audience as generous as you are.
Oh man, I think as soon as people understand what the story is, I mean, just people who have seen it or talking about it, yeah, it's going to spread. People are going to come and watch it for sure. But let people know when it's showing with Dances with Films.
Of course. No, we're screening on June 29th at 9:30 p.m. in Los Angeles's Chinese Theater with Dances with Films. And we'll also be screening at the Richmond International Film Festival in late September. And hopefully we have some other festivals we'll be able to announce soon.
Tremendous. And Dances with Film is your world premiere, right?
Is correct. It's our world premiere. Very
Boom.
excited for that.
Oh, man. And will you be in attendance? You doing a Q&A?
Oh, absolutely. Myself and Isaac will be doing a Q&A after the film. Sadly, Brittany's going to be in New York because she's in this lovely off-Broadway play right now called The Comeuppance. But, you know, a lot more of the cast and crew is going to be there, and maybe we can sneak a few more people on stage.
Fantastic. Oh, people, that's reason enough to go check this film out. You know, you will not be disappointed. It's a great little flick, man. It's interesting. And I definitely mean, like, the way it ends. Oh, I loved it because people don't usually do that. So I love that you went there. So yeah, man, I hope you have all the success. But let people know where they can find you, follow you, and all of that jazz.
Oh, sure. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at just look at my name, Justin Geldzahler. I'm Justin Gelds on both of those, but I forget where the underscore is in each account. We also have social media for the film, at Glue Trap Movie on both Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, you know, love to connect with anyone who loves this movie or just loves movies.
Tremendous. All the information, all the links will be on the website, people. So make sure you go book that ticket. It's the world premiere. You want to be there when it happens. All right. And so you can have a conversation with Justin and crew. So yes, you can book tickets, the link to the social media so you can follow Justin and the rest of the crew. Make sure you do it. Go check out the film and you will have a great time. So Justin, thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, feelings mutual. Thank you so much, Kevin. This was a great conversation. And thanks for the probing. It was the good kind.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All the success. Oh, do you have another project? Like, is there something coming next?
Yeah, you know, I mean, again, got to get on the other side of this strike, but I have
the Western.
The Western would take a lot of money, but you know, hopefully there's some people into it. I have a home invasion film that's about a lot of my climate anxiety. It's set in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's the home of a oil CEO, and that one's, you know, it'd be a little bit bigger, but I think it'd be a real fun one. It takes a lot of the lessons I learned consulting on Succession, and I think that'll be hopefully the next movie I make. It's called The House is on Fire.
Oh, man. When you said Greenwich, I was like, yo, that's up the road from me. Justin, I'll be in your film. Come on, let's go. And then you say, God damn it, Justin. Come on, man. Set the film in London. Don't be selfish. Come on.
Maybe the next one.
All right, man. Thank you for your time, man. All the success. And, yo, when you're a huge star, because this is going to blow, please come back. You know what I mean? Don't leave me in the cold. Come back for another conversation, man.
Of course. You know, knock on wood. Hopefully I'll be over in the UK presenting this movie.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Right. Well, all the success, man. Enjoy that premiere. It's going to be great.
Thank you. And thank you so much for getting the word out there. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no worries, man. It was a pleasure. All right. You take care.
You as well.